when I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is shave. And I have to be careful and keep it covered, like stomach covered, not to get any air down there and stuff. Then I spray it with a saline solution, and that loosens up the mucus. And I cough my brains out. And whatever's left, I have to pull it out and make sure everything is clean. Then I brush it, and then I usually cover it up with a filter. And then usually by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I start coughing more. So I know it's building up with mucus, and I have to do the same thing again to keep it clean. Even though I have a laryngectomy, I can still talk, and I can yell, and I can whisper if I really want to. I don't know if it really comes off as a whisper, but there's nothing to be afraid of. And I still have a voice. The first time I remember smoking was fishing with my oldest brother. I was probably 10 or 12 years old. And I found out when I smoked or had something in my hands, it would calm me down. The day I was told that I had cancer, I was pretty well freaked out. I sort of knew in my mind that I did because I could feel something in my throat when I was swallowing, but I didn't want to admit it. And then I went for a biopsy, and they called me on the phone, and I was all by myself, and they told me I had cancer.
I don't think anyone ever thinks, even no matter what their lifestyle, that they're going to get cancer. We had 2 young girls at home, and we had a business to run, so it was quite crazy. But he pushed through cancer very well.
I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but my sister-in-law works for ENT at UVM Medical Center, and so we immediately called her.
The plan was just to remove the tumor, and or even a partial laryngectomy, which he would still have his vocal cords, and he'd have use of his vocal cords then.
Yeah, I talked to my wife quite a bit, and she knew how afraid I was of the operation, and I think she knew that I thought I was going to die. That was my biggest fear.
It changed our lives. His life was totally changed, so that impacted me, being his wife, as well. He was, his personality changed a little, and, rightfully so. He got into a situation where, he wasn't happy for a while, and then he came around and he bounced back. And his voice before surgery was probably a middle tone. He didn't have a deep voice or particularly high voice. It was somewhere in the middle. And I actually think I still hear that voice rather than his voice today.
Want to give me the rest of it?
Which half is that?
My rest of the half. The ones that didn't show up.
After I woke up from surgery the next morning, and I got to see what I looked like, I was horrified. I was just sad and so depressed that this even happened. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And I blamed myself a lot. I didn't walk, because everybody told me don't smoke, you get cancer.
Laryngectomy is an operation usually done for cancer to remove the voice box. And it essentially separates the lower airway, meaning the lungs and trachea, from the upper airway, meaning the nose and the back of the throat. A partial laryngectomy means that you leave some structure which leaves a communication between the lower and upper airway. Often with partial laryngectomies, you don't need to have any permanent opening in the neck, but it always impairs swallowing a little bit. Total laryngectomy is where you completely disconnect the lower airway from the upper airway.
At the time, they were hoping they would be able to get the spot without doing a total laryngectomy. And I didn't know that it was a total until I woke up after the operation.
They decided to go with the full laryngectomy because the tumor was so big on the vocal cords, they couldn't get the tumor without taking the vocal cords also. When Walter was in surgery, when he came out into recovery, they did not want us to tell him that he had had a full laryngectomy. They wanted the anesthesia to wear off and to be out of recovery and back in a room before he was told that he had a full laryngectomy.
And then when I woke up, I remember hearing a good friend's voice and my wife's voice saying, are we going to tell him or are we going to wait? And I really couldn't talk, and I didn't know what was going on. So I already knew. Then I had a total.
I was working on the day of Walter's surgery. His surgery was scheduled for 1 o'clock. So I worked in the morning, and then I walked up the hill and met Mary Jo here at the main campus in the waiting area.
My sister Karen was very helpful. She was a great moral support for me. She was with me during the surgery and beyond.
And after the procedure, we were waiting, and Dr. Sofferman came to speak to Mary Jo and Andrew, and I was present. And Mary Jo was sitting there quietly, tears running down her face. But she was reassured because the surgery went well. It was just the aspect of him losing his ability to speak.
The hardest part was, going through this is getting used to my voice. And that, it's going to be different, for the way I talked. And the reaction of people looking at me when I first start talking.
There are different options for speech after laryngectomy, and different people choose to use different options. And they're always making minor improvements on those prostheses so that they have fewer complications.
He started using what they call a Servox. It's a device that's handheld, and they put it up against their neck, and the vibration is what makes the voice. He now speaks with what they call, he has a TEP put into his neck, and he presses on it, and that's how the voice comes out now.
It's 1959 technology. It's called the Andvthry. Not many people use it because of the technology now with implants and stuff like that, which I did have, but my body rejected it.
One of my customers, who used to be very, very quiet, heard me talking to somebody else about, that I had cancer of the larynx. And all of a sudden he started talking to me and told me that his father had the same thing. And he wanted to know if I wanted his father to come down to the store and talk to me. And I said, sure. And he did with another guy. And they talked to me for quite a bit. And I saw what their lives were like now. And they were pretty funny and jovial. And that calmed me down quite a bit. That's how I got involved with the patient, because the support group that I ended up joining was, these two guys were more or less running it, and there was a bunch of other people at the time. And I knew they were doing that. And I told them if they ever needed help to let me know. And unfortunately, that guy passed away, and I just kind of stepped in and took over. You're doing well, though. Did you go dancing last night? All right.
I met Walter in the hospital after my third surgery. And when I saw him, I was quite relieved and all that. There's life after this devastating surgery. This next year, really, if you ask me.
He wasn't not a happy camper, or his wife, and he was really angry. And I remember being angry also that we let this happen to ourselves.
I think we were friends, me and Walter, right away. And of course it evolved over time. And now it's like, I don't see him too often, but a couple times a year, usually try to gather together with all of us.
It's really amazing. It's really,
That's it,
it just
too.
really.
I thought the support group would be very helpful, just to be with people that have been through the same experience, have the same surgery, same cancer, share ideas with each other.
We kept on going back as it was supportive, and everybody became my friend. We all had same problem, everything in common. And it was like learning how to live all over again.
I think being involved with this group's helped me in quite a few different ways. Number one, I got to meet some pretty interesting characters, is what I gotta tell you, because most of us laryngectomies are pretty much characters. So, over the years, we lost a lot of close friends, but we enjoyed the time that we had with them. So I think that was one of the best things that happened to me by joining the group.
The basic laryngectomy hasn't changed a lot in the last 40 years, but that's one of my former mentors, who was actually Walter's surgeon, used to say that's because it really works well and patients do well, and that's why we continue to do it. So
I guess the hardest part is just watching someone that you love have to go through all this. such a hard time.
Seeing Walter go through this process was much different than seeing a patient in the hallway that I did not know, even though I knew somewhat what they were going through. But to have a family member facing this, I really never thought I would have a family member going through something like this.
I was really happy with all the people that I had supporting me. My family, the people in the store, and you can survive and you can live and you can talk again.